What if I told you that one of Hollywood's most loved stars, whose wit, charm, and unmatched dance moves have made generations of fans happy, had a secret that could make you question everything you thought you knew about him? You may remember him from his big screen tap dancing debut, a story of perseverance, metamorphosis, and shocking disclosures lies beneath those famous smiles and flawless performances, but most fans don't know this. You're going to hear some unknown tales about Dick Van Dyke that will change the way you see him forever, so hold on a little longer. Our upcoming discovery will wow you. Their collaboration with the late great American hero Dick Van Dyke brought them widespread fame. He will forever be remembered for his charming, funny, and enduring roles, from his cameo in Mary Poppins to the legendary Dick Van Dyke Show. Many people don't know that Dick Van Dyke has had a life filled with triumph, sorrow, and personal struggles, despite his famed smiles and breathtaking dance routines. His path wasn't always funny, but his legendary physique and impeccable comic timing have made him famous. You might be surprised to learn that his entire story is replete with unexpected events, sorrow, and tragedy. Join me on this adventure, you won't regret it. West Plains, Missouri was the site of Richard Wayne Van Dyke's birth on December 13, 1925. Being the youngest of 5 siblings, he hailed from a humble background. Even as a little boy, he has an innate gift for performing. Dick had a natural talent for capturing an audience's attention, whether he was dancing, singing, or putting on a performance. His charisma shone through even as a young man. However, below that allure was a struggle that would engulf the majority of his existence. His dad, Lorenz, sold goods on the side of the road, and his mom, Hazel, was a housewife and music fan. Despite being born into a fairly ordinary American household, Dick had a challenging childhood. He came to view marriage through a different lens as an adult due to his parents' troubled marriage. When things got tough at home, Dick would often seek solace in the arts, particularly humor and the theater. Even as early as the 1940s, Van Dyke had already decided that he wanted to make a living as a performer. But when WWII broke out in 1943, Van Dyke had only just turned 17 years old, so he enlisted in the Army Air Corps. Because of this, he had to wait longer to make his debut in show business. His time in the military was not without its challenges, but it did help him become a better radio operator and an entertainer for the troops. Even yet, this was a difficult time for Van Dyke, and he would consider how the conflict affected his mental health and perspective on life in years to come. Upon getting back into his routine, Dick's business began to flourish. There was a complete lack of success. In New York City's vaudeville scene, which included Broadway and radio shows, he worked relentlessly and played a number of roles. Still, his mental problems started to show up as his fame grew. Something much worse was going on behind the scenes of the bright lights and the loyal Van Dyke followers. Masks were an integral part of Dick Van Dyke's early work. People thought he was a happy comedian with a great smile, even though he was privately fighting addiction. His drinking had a devastating effect on his private life and would follow him about for a long time, jeopardizing his hard-won professional success. While the Dick Van Dyke Show was at its peak in the early 60s, Dick's private life was in shambles. Despite their beautiful on-screen chemistry, his marriage to Marjorie Willett was in trouble. His real-life problems often paralleled the show's comedic and dramatic elements. Consider how Dick handled his approaching marriage with a dash of humor. His popularity and drunkenness caused him internal strife because he couldn't separate his professional and personal lives. After nearly 30 years of marriage, Dick and Marjorie decided to separate in 1965. Even though it was a traumatic event, Dick saw it as a turning point in his life. Even though he was going through a terrible patch, he was determined not to allow it shape his identity. He started getting better instead. A new era began for Van Dyke in the 1970s. Dick made the decision to change while he was at his lowest point. He got help for his problem and eventually kicked his drug habit after years of hard work. For someone who had been there before, drinking had been their escape for so long, making this a challenging task. But it was at this point that his real metamorphosis began. Even though he was far more grounded in reality in the 1970s, Dick continued to have considerable success. He started to branch out in Hollywood, appearing in films and TV shows that were quite different from his earlier work. Despite his renewed concentration on his career, Dick would face yet another difficult situation that would change his life and challenge everything he thought he knew about himself. Tragic events happened again in 1982. Actress Michelle Triola was Dick's second wife, and the two were married for 18 years. There was love and issues in the partnership, and the separation was simply the latest setback that made Dick doubt his purpose in life. Though excruciating, it was far from the final challenge he would encounter. Mr. Jerry, in 2012, Dick, who was Dick's brother, died away. He was his trusted companion and supporter throughout his entire life. The inevitable loss of Dick's loved ones was something he had to come to terms with as he aged. But the news of his brother's death came as a terrible blow. Still, Dick summoned the determination to keep going, just like he had innumerable times previously. Even though Dick was in excruciating pain, he managed to get through each time. His incredibly strong attitude shone through as he never let a personal tragedy dampen his enthusiasm for performing. Actually, he took on a new role as a teacher during this time in his life, passing on the wisdom he had acquired to aspiring performers and artists. Dick Van Dyke's priorities have only become more pressing as time has passed. There is a lot more to his life than meets the eye, despite the fact that his name is still synonymous with classic Hollywood glamour. It is a story of perseverance, finding strength in the face of tragedy, and learning to love oneself after years of suffering. The story of Van Dyke gives readers hope, since it shows that it is possible to overcome adversity. His dogged persistence stems from the fact that he has faced his demons head-on and come out even stronger. The remarkable path that Dick has followed to become the man he is now, in addition to his playing ability, continues to motivate millions of people, even at the late age of 98. Not only does he continue to enjoy success in the entertainment industry, but he also represents the tenacity of the human soul. Dick Van Dyke has been through thick and thin, yet he has remained true to himself through it all. He rose to fame in show business by finding joy in the midst of adversity and dancing his way through it. Even the wealthiest celebrities have it bad sometimes, and his story is a good reminder of that. On the outside, it may seem like Dick has it made, but there's always a lot more complexity to the story. Behind the man with the contagious grin and the remarkable dance skills is someone whose life has been through things that would have crushed most people. In spite of everything, Dick Van Dyke remains an inspiration to everyone who looks up to him. The lessons he taught us about love, resilience, and the power of fresh beginnings will last well beyond his shows. Looking back on his journey always makes us realize that the real drama is always hidden behind the scenes, away from the spotlight. This screenplay sets the stage for a really moving and interesting video that would keep people glued to YouTube for hours. I can assist you in continuing the story till it reaches the 3,000-word threshold if you would like to add more details to particular circumstances or parts of Dick Van Dyke's life. Would you prefer that I highlight certain aspects or provide more context?